On this episode of Locked On Angels, the Angels get a win in the first game against the A's, and they move to 500 in the month of June. How about that? Sandy's having surgery, so what's his future with the Halos, and why isn't Miguel Sano in the majors right now? Let's chat about that. It's time to get locked on with Mike and Jon, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is. And yes, we are. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcast, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to give back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's really one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And today's show is brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB. Use our promo code LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100.
Thank you for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is Jon, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother Jon.
Mike, it's our third season here at Locked On Angels, and we're always learning new things as we go along in this podcast world, including don't wear blue after a Dodgers series, because everyone thought we had switched teams or something. I was just rocking my Counting Crows shirt. That's all I was doing.
I was wearing my Holy Cow shirt that I got from Locked On Everydayer Dave, so we appreciate him very much.
Hey, we're here 5 days a week talking Angels baseball with you Monday through Friday. On today's show, Patrick Sandoval is going to have Tommy John surgery. It's very unfortunate news for Patrick Sandoval, and it kind of, I don't know, there's some implications of what the Angels might or might not do because of that missing piece of the rotation.
Yeah.
And why isn't Miguel Sano back with the club yet? They've given us an interesting reason that we'll talk about. But Mike, let's talk about the 5-1 win against the A's at the Big A on Monday night.
Yeah, the Angels got on the board first with a first inning 2-run home run from Taylor Ward, his 13th. He's leading the team. And then the A's came back in the second inning with a home run from Tyler Nevin. And then Griffin Canning shut them down. We'll get to that in just a second. But bottom of the third, Rengifo singles, and then Ward walks. And then the runners advance on a wild pitch. The ball goes crazy back there, kind of rivets off the back and goes off to the side. Willie Calhoun followed with a walk to load the bases. Then O'Hoppe does what I think was one of the best moments in the game. And I know it sounds so simple, but Johnny, this is those young guys learning how to nickel and dime. He hits a sacrifice fly to right field, and that scored a run. It was on a 98-mile-an-hour fastball. Angels led again by 2. Then Neto strikes out on a pitch above the zone, not what you want to see. And then Moniak rockets one to first base. The first baseman reaches for it, goes off his glove. It does knock in a run. Angels are up by 3 at this point. They gave the first baseman an error, but on the TV side, Mark Gubicza said, nah, that's a hit, because that was a really, really tough play. Right. And then Joe Adell struck out to end the inning, but the Angels were up 4-1 at this point.
I don't want to gloss over the fact that Tyler Nevin, son of former Angels manager Phil Nevin, was the one who hit the home run against the Angels yesterday. I thought that was kind of funny just because it's like, this is for my dad hitting the home run. And
you get that run.
Getting one back. Yeah, you get that one run, Tyler. There you go.
Yeah.
So, Mike, you're right. Logan O'Hoppe hitting that sac fly in that situation is what we've been looking for, because how many times have we seen a ground out, a double play, a strikeout, that sort of thing? And look, the other guys, Neto struck out, Joe Adell struck out. So it was good that O'Hoppe at least got that sacrifice fly. And I'm not going to dogpile on the young guys, but it could have very easily been a 3 strikeout inning had it not been for O'Hoppe doing what he did there. Hey, top of the 6th, after a leadoff double, Canning picked off Miguel Andujar at second. And man, that's his 10th pickoff of the season.
Great
which was
footwork.
Awesome. Yeah. Got one of the best to do it out there. In fact, everybody knows he's a Gold Glover from 2020, and that was a shortened season, but Canning's been really great fielding his position off the mound this season. You could see him getting another Gold Glove the way he's been performing out there. So the Halos had Canning go 7 strong innings in this one. 1 home run surrendered for the 1 run, 5 Ks, one walk that wasn't really a walk because the fourth pitch was not in the strike zone, all over the strike zone.
Right.
Lots of changeups to left-handed hitters, Mike. He was very effective in this one. What'd you like from Griffin Canning?
I just loved that he was using all of his pitches really well. And I know that he has a tendency to give up a lot of home runs, but he minimized the damage. And that's what I appreciated about his start last night. Now, there's going to be a narrative. Well, it's the A's. But at this point, we have to remember that these guys are learning how to win, and you got to beat the bad teams. And what Griffin Canning did last night is exactly what he should have done against a bad A's team.
Look, we can say, well, it's the A's all you want, but you know what other teams are saying about us? Well, it's the Angels. So you tell me that if that evens out or not, because that's the way I see it.
Yeah. Bottom of the sixth, the Angels added on. Neto doubled. He was a maniac last night. Then Moniak doubled and drove in Neto, gave the Angels a 4-run lead. And then, John, they tried a squeeze play again, and I think maybe they just need to call timeout on that because they just don't seem to be doing well. Stefanik misses the bunt. Moniak slips. They tag him out, and then you can see Ryan Goings in the dugout telling Moniak, he was motioning you go on first move. And Moniak didn't go on first move. So it was more of a suicide squeeze than it was a safety squeeze in that situation. And again, it was Stefanik at the plate who does make contact. So it was an interesting call. Obviously, the Angels were up. It doesn't matter at this point, but it's another one of those situations where I don't know if they're just kind of Ron Washington's just trying to have some fun, or maybe trying to hey, I'm managing. I'm kind of bored. I need to do something. But that's kind of what it felt like in that moment, right?
It feels like a good moment to try it just because you have that 4-run lead and you're playing the A's, Mike. And maybe that's kind of what their train of thought there was. I wish I had more to say on it, but my Spectrum internet went out during this portion of the game. So I don't know about you out there in Locked On Angels Everydayer land who had issues with Spectrum, but I most certainly did. So that's my rant for the moment. Spectrum,
not a sponsor of Locked On
more
Angels.
more like Sus Spectrum. Top of the eighth, Mike. More like top of the eighth, Mike. Ben Joyce entered. He got the first 2 batters, then gave up a single and a walk. Brent Rooker came up, who's always dangerous at the plate.
Yeah.
And Joyce got him to strike out. Now, Joyce threw his splitter, sinker, splinker, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Did you write sprinkler? I love that.
That's the autocorrect. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? Let's call it a sprinkler. It was 100 miles an hour with 16.1 inches of run. So if you saw that one run in, I believe it was to Andujar that started over the plate and then ended under his hands, and Andujar swung over it. That was the splinker, if you will. So since Ben Joyce has added this pitch, Mike, he hasn't allowed a run in 6 2/3 innings over the 4 games since he's come back and started throwing that sinker. So just great work to see. Hey, pitching development with a pitcher who needs to be developed. And look at these guys doing their job, and look at Ben Joyce learning and growing and developing. This is what we want to see from Angels baseball.
And I know it was 5-1, John, but I like that he was brought out in the 8th inning. I like that that's where they had him play. And so there's a future there, right? There's a future for him being one of the back end of the bullpen type of guys.
I mentioned this on Friday when I did the Fan Mail Friday episode. I suspect that all the promotion you saw of the relief pitchers from high A to double A is because the double A pitchers who are currently there are going to be replaced by the high A pitchers because the double A pitchers are coming up to the majors once Estevez is gone, once Simber's gone, once Luis Garcia has been traded. When all those guys get traded, which I think is a good indication that the Angels are at least going to do the bare minimum and trade their expiring contracts. I think the guys who are in high A right now are going to get, double A right now are going to get promoted to the majors. And then the high A guys who just came up, they'll be the workhorses in double A. So I'm starting to see some movement in the Angels organization, and that's kind of what my suspicion is at this point.
I hope that's the case, because that would be great to see some of those young guys up and the Angels making the smart trades, the wise trades, getting rid of some of those contracts that are ending. Now, top of the 9th, Hans Kraus comes in. He's a SoCal guy, an OC guy. He strikes, actually the first batter hits a ball to left field, and Taylor Ward, who hit a home run, then robs a home run. So that was a great play by Taylor Ward. Then Kraus strikes out the next batter. He followed that next batter with a walk, and then he strikes out the final batter to close out this game. Johnny, Angels win 5-1. And again, I mentioned this in the opening. They're 500 in June after this win. And they have A's for 2 more games. And then they play the Tigers, Johnny. So maybe perhaps they could, I'm not going to say it because I'm not going to jinx it. So I'm not going to say it out loud. I'm just glad that they are at 500 in June. And I have hopes that maybe they can do some good in the next couple of days.
Right. Well, and we've talked about it. The strength of schedule gets easier.
Yeah.
From this point onward. I know they still have some tough series coming up, but to see them hang in there with the Dodgers was really great on Friday. To see them do what they did today, you got to beat the A's. I mean, it's embarrassing if you don't beat the A's. Yeah. And we've talked about this before, Mike, when the Angels have to play teams that we always say they should beat and should be better than. Sometimes what you get is a start by Griffin Canning where it's like, yes, it's the A's. And like I said, people are saying, well, it's the Angels when they play us. Yeah. But sometimes you just need a confidence booster where you can kick butt for 7 innings and feel good and look good and get all your pitches working. Like Griffin Canning's changeup to lefties was phenomenal last night. And so sometimes you just like, I mean, it's like when we played video games. If you wanted to feel good about yourself, you just beat me at a game of baseball. That's how it would work back in the day, or a game of Mario Kart or GoldenEye or something. And so what I'm trying to say is, even though this is a game the Angels should win, it's nice that these guys can get out there and have a kind of confidence boost where you get a chance to beat up on somebody. And now what I would like to see more of is maybe Joe Adell figure it out at the plate and get back to his short swing. I talked about what's been going wrong with him lately, and it's the big, long, loopy swing, and he chased some pitches down and away, and that's the Joe Adell that gets himself in trouble. So maybe this is a series against some pitching from the A's that he can figure that stuff out.
Jeff Fletcher tweeted out earlier last week that the Angels have the rest of their games, 27% of the rest of their games are against the White Sox, the A's, and the Rockies. So teams to get right against and maybe figure some things out and maybe put some wins together. That would be great. Build the confidence, help them to feel a little bit better about themselves, learn how to win in those games. These are teams that they're supposed to beat. And so let's beat the teams that we're supposed to beat.
Yeah, try a suicide squeeze. See if it works.
Let's go.
Just give it a shot, Ronnie. There you go. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. The Angels are back at it at the Big A, 6:38 Pacific time. It's going to be Spence versus Tyler Anderson. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels. Coming up on Locked On Angels, Patrick Sandoval is going to have Tommy John surgery. What does this mean for his future as an Angel and the future of the Angels rotation? We're going to get into all of that coming right up.
Hey, listen, just because it's not tax season anymore, it's over. It doesn't mean the IRS is still not going to come after you for those unfiled taxes. They can garnish your wages. They can levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your property. You don't want that, obviously. So let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. With over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over, John, $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or you finally hit that parlay this season and you need help filing it correctly, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. Of course, there is a link in the description below. And also, Locked On Angels is brought to you by Supply House. You can order supplies from the website that's made for you. For all those in the skilled trades, find thousands of parts from hundreds of brands in just a couple of clicks at supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com gives you 24/7 access to a huge selection of plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies. Plus, you get fast delivery anywhere in the U.S. And if you need help with an order, they have industry-leading sales service. And these people are so friendly and knowledgeable. Their customer service support team are going to be there for you. They're going to allow you to talk to a real person every single time. And then great news for plumbers and technicians and contractors. The Pro has a perk when you are somebody that works in this industry. Trade industry professionals can join their free Trade Master program and get free shipping and serious discounts on every order. All you have to do is apply for membership today at supplyhouse.com/TM. You can save money and save time when you order online. Order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from supplyhouse.com. Real people, Jonathan, real service.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And everydayers, if you haven't checked it out already, you guys know that Locked On Podcast Network presents to you Locked On Sports Today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program just for you to bring you the biggest stories in sports, including, they're going to be talking about it, the NHL Stanley Cup Finals, Mike.
Yeah,
Woo, what a
great game.
What a great series, a great game. I was sad that Edmonton couldn't complete the comeback, but was it the Panthers' first Stanley Cup?
And they've lost 2 before that, so they needed a win.
Yeah, they definitely needed that. Anyway, you can check out Locked On Sports Today, where it brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news. It's streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And speaking of your team every day, the Angels are playing the A's tonight, 6:38 Pacific time. Right back at it. Catch every pitch of the Angels' hometown broadcast on SiriusXM with the SXM app. Just search Angels.
Johnny, we got the news yesterday. Patrick Sandoval is having Tommy John surgery. He had a high-grade flexor tear and a UCL tear. We're going to have Dr. Top Plays back on the show to give us the details of some of that stuff. But there's no timetable for his return, but all indications is that this could keep him out, obviously, for the rest of this year and possibly next year. Now, here's an interesting note, Johnny. Sandy is eligible for free agency after the 2026 season. He's under control for 2 more years, arbitration, of course. So a couple of questions about Sandoval and where he's at. First one comes from Locked On Everydayer at Dr. Scott Freeman on Twitter. He said, so does this make the Angels more likely to scrap 2025, trade Anderson and Rengifo, or hold on to Anderson to fill the void? What do you think?
Yeah, Dr. Scott Freeman brought up a great question that really concerns me, Mike, because and I know you have been as well, we've been on the trade Tyler Anderson train, because train. Oh, just start over, John.
Yeah.
We've been on that train to trade Tyler Anderson because he has a 1.5 years of control. He's got the best WAR among all starting pitchers in the league right now. And he's got that sub 2.5 ERA going for him. And Mike, I'm deathly afraid that we will not see this Tyler Anderson come next year, maybe even in the second half.
Yeah.
So I don't think his value is going to get any higher than it is right now. And this is what concerns me. And Dr. Scott's going to keep me up at night with nightmares because he brought this up. I am so concerned that they don't trade Tyler Anderson now because they need his arm in the rotation. Now, Dr. Scott did say, do they scrap 2025? Well, in my opinion, I think that trading Anderson and Rengifo doesn't necessarily scrap next year because we talked about it on Friday. Look, I know there's been a lot of discourse about it, but we had a Locked On Everydayer, B. Riley, bring up, can the Angels trade Tyler Anderson to the Orioles for some of their top prospects, maybe a Kobe Mayo or a Connor Norby. Those guys are ready to play now. And maybe the Angels don't get a Mayo or a Norby, but maybe they do get some guys from another team who are ready to play now and can impact 2025. Because if you think about it, Norby and Mayo, they're positionally blocked. That's the only reason they're not up with the Orioles right now. Plus the Orioles don't have a need. Like, they are doing just fine without those prospects. And so they might use those trade chips for somebody who has a longer term contract, like a Garrett Crochet, or maybe if the Padres sell, maybe they get Dylan Cease from the Padres, right? Just to enhance that rotation. But guys like Anderson and Rengifo, their value has never been higher. And now I'm concerned that with this injury to Patrick Sandoval, that the Angels are going to go, well, we got to have Anderson. Who's even going to pitch for us now? And that is so frustrating to me because at this point of the season, you don't need to be playing for the playoffs. You don't need to be playing for 2024. You can continue to let the young guys grow and have guys like Davis Daniel pitch for you. I know Kenny Rosenberg's hurt right now. Shout out to him, by the way. They're expecting their second child, the little boy. I saw their post on social media. So shout out Kenny. And all of that to say, Mike, I am so afraid that in the very small percentage that I thought the Angels would trade Tyler Anderson, well, that's even more diminished now with this Patrick Sandoval injury. And I hate to say it, but I just really hope they do the right thing, even though Patrick Sandoval now puts a void in this rotation.
I'm in your category, but I can see why they wouldn't trade him simply because they wouldn't want a Davis Daniel trying to figure out in the major league level, because they've had so many guys trying to figure it out at the major league level, and it hasn't been great for their confidence. Now, that doesn't mean they shouldn't trade him. I think they should, but I think that there's a hesitancy, and if they don't trade him, it's probably because they're not very confident in some of the guys that they would bring in to fill that rotation spot, right? Obviously, Reed Detmers can come back up if they trade him. And I think once Chase Silseth is feeling good, he can come back up. So they have two arms there that can come back up and that can fill that rotation spot. But I also think that they should give Davis Daniel a shot. I don't think they need to be afraid, but there's a part of me that thinks that maybe they're going to be a bit hesitant simply because they've got so many guys that are developing right now at the major league level. And, you know, they get a lot of grief for it. They're like, these guys need to be in the minor leagues. Well, the truth is that right now they would be desperate to bring up somebody if they do trade Anderson.
Look, if they trade Anderson, I'll say it this way. If bringing back Jose Suarez to pitch in this rotation means that they'll do the right thing and trade Tyler Anderson this season, I'll take it. I'll take it 100 times, Mike. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I know that it's great that Suarez is in the organization down in AAA and they don't need to bring him up. And maybe spending time down there with the coaches that are down there is what gets him back to like a 2021, 2022 type of pitcher, right? Where I think I said this, did I say this maybe a year ago? I said, Jose Suarez is a perfect number 5.
Yeah.
He's the number 5 guy in your rotation, but he has not been pitching like a number 5. He hasn't pitched like a number 10 since last season.
Right.
And he has historically pitched like a number 5. It reminds me of like a Jerome Williams type, right? Just somebody to go out there, give you innings. You might have to hit a lot of home runs or get a lot of offense to bail your starting pitcher out. That's who Suarez has been in the past. And if AAA can get him back to that, then that's great. But look, I want Anderson traded so bad, not because I don't love Anderson, but because I don't think his value will ever be higher. Now, Mike, Sandy is a free agent after 2026. Now, one thing that Jeff Fletcher of the OC Register suggested is that the Angels could non-tender him instead of going into arbitration with him, and then re-sign him to a multi-year deal that's relatively on the cheap side, but it establishes what he makes per year, and we'll have some guaranteed years for him once he's done with Tommy John. So that's good for the team. That's good for Sandy because he knows that he'll have a job. Now, they can't non-tender him until the end of the season when the offseason comes and they start getting into arbitration. Non-tender is what they did to Jared Walsh, by the way, in case you were wondering what that meant. All of that to say, how do they handle this Sandoval contract situation? What do you say?
Yeah, that it's going to be an interesting conversation with him because with the surgery and then him being out, he probably won't pitch a full season for the Angels unless they re-sign him for the 2027, 2028 season, because he'll come back in 26, right? I can't see him coming back next year, maybe at the end of next year, but that's really kind of pushing the timeline, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that what you suggested might be the way forward unless they want to go to arbitration. But then again, they're in a situation where he's a free agent. And so the thing that I'm going to be really paying attention to is this. Anytime an Angel pitcher has been DFA'd or non-tendered or released, there's always this concern about, like, is somebody going to pick them up? I wonder what people will say about Patrick Sandoval. He's better than Suarez, obviously, but Sandoval has still got a lot of work to do, which might be a benefit to the Angels. The problem is the Angels don't need just another arm. They need somebody that's really going to help this rotation. So I'm going to pay really close attention to that because I'd be interested to see what kind of feelers are out there and what kind of desire other teams have for somebody like Patrick Sandoval.
Well, and I know that a lot of people like to pile on Patrick Sandoval, but the truth is, if you look around baseball discourse yesterday, it was, hey, the pitching market just got a little bit smaller because I think it was Jesus Luzardo and Patrick Sandoval were written into articles about, hey, these guys are off the trade table now because they're injured. So as much as we may pile on Patrick Sandoval, he's obviously appealing for other teams, especially with the years of control that he had left.
Yeah.
But those kind of go out the window at this point.
Every dayers, you got to try Prize Picks. It's America's #1 fantasy sports app with over 5 million members. It's so much fun and one of the most exciting ways to get in on all of the action, to watch your favorite sports and players. You can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. I love those odds, right? You need only to pick 2 to 6 players and decide if they're going to do more or less with the stat projections. Then you're locked in. And then, of course, with Prize Picks, there's promotions that have got you covered every single week.
I saw somebody online say, shoot, now with Patrick Sandoval gone, there goes all the easy unders. They took the under on Sandoval's line on Prize Picks every time, and they would win big. So, yeah. So that's unfortunate.
We love you, Patrick. And if you don't like baseball, you want to try something else, try women's basketball. It's heating up right now. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, they're fantastic, and they're working alongside Breanna Stewart, Najee Wilson, and you could win up to 100 times your cash by watching them ball out. So download the app, enter our promo code Locked On MLB. You're going to get a first deposit match of up to $100. Again, Locked On MLB, first deposit match of up to $100. Join Prize Picks today. What are you waiting for? You got to do it right now. Pick more, pick less. It's really that easy.
Mike, I was sitting around yesterday thinking to myself, man, I feel really bad for Miguel Sano. He had that knee injury and he just hasn't been on the field and he hasn't played any games. And man, it just must be really hard for him to not be up with the club and sitting at home and rehabbing his knee and not feeling. Wait, you're telling me he's in AAA? Is that what?
Telling me there's a chance?
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Yes, Mike. He is still in the minor leagues right now, and the reason is, according to Ron Washington, we don't have a place for him right now. Michael, this is no longer about health.
Yeah.
But is more about there's no spot for Miguel Sano. Really? Are we sure? What's the deal with this? Tell me about it.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the roster, and who would you send down if you were going to make room for him? Obviously, Michael Stefanik is somebody that you could send down. Mm-hmm. He has one more minor league option, so they could send him down. Perhaps they send down a pitcher to make room, but they do need some pitching. So I can see why there might be some tension there. I can see why they're like, I don't know if we want to mess with this. But the reality is that you need his offense, right? I mean, he wasn't hitting a bunch of bombs for you, but he was hitting 280, 290. He was hitting in the high, almost low 300s. So yeah, I think you kind of need that. I wonder if they want the flexibility of Stefanik that Sano doesn't give them, because he's strictly kind of a third baseman DH. But what do you think the thought process is with Sano and the major league roster right now?
I don't know about that third baseman DH thing, because he can play first base as well. And so he can play the corners, he can DH for you. And between Rengifo and Guillorme and Drury, when he gets over his chest infection, they've got enough help up the middle, Mike. So I just don't quite understand what the need is there. Now, maybe they want to get the most they can out of Michael Stefanik and not have to option him again. Look, I love Michael Stefanik, and I'm glad that they're finally giving him a chance. But look, I know you brought up Miguel Sano's offense. That's fantastic. But in the same kind of going hand in hand with that is, don't you want to build this guy's value? So maybe you have something to sell at the trade deadline and have him do a Kevin Pillar, because look, nobody's going to take Willie Calhoun at this point. I know he got on base 3 times last night, but at this point, Willie Calhoun's little Cinderella story he had going when he first came up, that's gone away. Kevin Pillar has kind of cooled off. I am actually kind of glad that they're protecting him in the sense that he's not playing every day now, because he still has really great stats, and perhaps there's some value there that they can trade with Kevin Pillar. I think they got to do the same thing with Miguel Sano, I don't understand why he's not up with this team other than the roadblock that they're talking about. So, yes, talking out both sides of my mouth here. I am glad that Stefanic's finally getting a chance. However, I think they're missing out on a great opportunity to put Miguel Sano out there and get something for him. Trade him at the deadline. Do something.
He's not blocking anybody when he's on the major league roster like Kevin Pillar or Aaron Hicks was blocking Moniak or Adele, right? Michael Stefanik is Michael Stefanik. I've been an advocate to have him on the major league roster because he makes contact and he can play a couple of different places. But if he still has an option, and I think that you can bring Sano up to build his value, you have to do that. And so I think that's the priority. I think this is where the Angels can be frustrating as a fan as you watch them, is there's no strategy. And so the strategy needs to be, right now, the strategy needs to be build the players that we're going to trade at the deadline, like make them the most valuable that we can at this point. And then once the trade deadline comes, you take the players that you have currently, give them all of the opportunity. Plus, if you make some really good trades, let's say they get a couple of Oriole guys or a couple of Dodger guys or whatever, then you fit them in wherever you need to fit them in. And you have some of the younger guys from Rocket City that are coming up. And so I think right now the plan until the trade deadline needs to be, how can we make Miguel Sano and Tyler Anderson and Carlos Estevez and all of those guys, how can we make Matt Moore, all of these guys really attractive for other teams so that we can get the most bang for our buck? Because the Angels just haven't done that the last few years. And if they've learned anything, I know comparing Shohei to Tyler Anderson is ridiculous, but not trading Shohei has really put them in a bind when it comes to some of their minor leagues and when it comes to their future. So you have to take your greatest assets, which are Tyler Anderson and perhaps even a Miguel Sano and Kevin Pillar, and see what you can do with them and see if you can get a good return for them. That should be the strategy until the end of July.
Well, and that's the thing. You've already got your answer about how this season is going to go. And last year, they felt like there was a chance that with Shohei Ohtani on the team, they could go for it. And they were close to contending for that wild card spot. They still had a lot of time left. I know the schedule got more difficult from that point on, but everybody they trade for absolutely fell apart other than like Ronaldo Lopez, right? And so all of that to say, they have their answer and they have to put these guys in a position to look good, put them on display and trade them, because otherwise you're not going to get the maximum value that you can. Mike, you said something, if they've learned anything, and that's where I'm concerned. Have the Angels really learned anything?
They're going to go, hey, we're 500 in June, so we probably should keep everybody. We probably should try to figure this out, right? No,
not 500, not 500 on the season, just 500 in June. That's what we're talking about. Yeah. So I'm very concerned that, look, on one hand, I'm concerned because Angels historically have not done what they needed to do. However, I understand that they were trying to keep Ohtani around and get to a playoff position. On the other hand, I look at things that happened, like with the graduation of the high A bullpen to double A and maybe anticipating that the major league bullpen is gone at the deadline. I look at that kind of stuff and I go, okay, that's intriguing. So really, at this point, you could flip a coin because we have no idea what they're going to do at the deadline.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Angels play the A's tonight, 6:38 Pacific time. Of course, you can catch every pitch of the Angels' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels.
Hey, give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to today's show, find the YouTube episode, get in the comment section, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on your way down to your comment section, and we'll do our best to get back to you. Mike, what do we have on deck for Wednesday's show?
Well, Trouty gets a lot of grief for being loyal to a team that in some ways, fans will say, haven't been loyal back to him. But that loyalty has impacted the young players. And we're going to tell you about one player that it impacted and what he had to say about Trouty tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
Looking forward to that conversation, and we hope you'll come back and join us. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Wednesday.
Wearing my Tyler Skaggs shirt that we got from his mama. Thank you for those gifts.
Thank you, Debbie.
Heck yeah.